Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call to order the Finance and Labor Relation Committee. Counsel Ingram will be coming in at around 5:30. Are there any disclosures, pecuniary interest, and general nature thereof? None noted. So we're going to start with the draft capital budget. And what we're going to do, if there aren't any changes, we'll go right to the end and we'll have a motion at the end. And that'll be the same with operating. If there's a change in what staff has recommended, we'll have a motion that has to be passed. And then at the end, we'll hold the operating budget too. So we're going to start at the capital budget, and it's all in order. I think everyone has got we're going to start with corporate services, which is A on your blue sheet. And then the pages are page 5 on parking. So whoever's going to, from staff, that's going to direct us through capital on corporate services, not likely our director will.
Yes, through the chair. All of the capital budget is covered by reserve funds, so there are no tax implications to the capital budget at this time. Everything shifted to the operating budget a couple of years ago, so we fund our capital program through transfers to reserve in the operating budget. So if there are any questions on specific projects, if council wants to ask those, we can have the appropriate department answer those.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions of council, and it goes from corporate services, community services, infrastructure, social services, and then Stratford Public Library and Stratford Police Services. If there aren't questions, it's going to go extremely quick, I'll tell you.
Sorry, if I may.
Oh, sure. I didn't see your. I couldn't see.
No, it's just that if we could just walk through it, because I have made some notes through it, but if we're all like flipping through trying to find our notes and getting out of order, is it possible to just go through like project 1, give us a chance to say anything? If not, move on project 2. That way we can do them sequentially, because some of us may have questions as we go. As I said, I didn't use like classic sticky tabs to find all of the questions.
Okay, well, if we can start with project number, they're all, as Kathy said, project number 1. Any questions on that? That's on page 5. Kathy.
So I do have a question. So when we go through and it says impact on operating budget going forward, and there's an amount, so it says annual or current year budget only, and annual. Is that annual fee that we see here? It's already accounted for in the operating budget that we have before us, or is it an additional over and above?
I believe it's in the operating, but I'll ask the director.
So it's already rolled into that 2.2-ish% increase?
Yes, through the chair, I believe any of those operating costs are in the operating budget.
Thank you so much.
Okay, if there isn't anything on project 1, we'll go to project 2, the computers, personal computers. Project 3, unified communication system. Kathy.
So this is where I had a question that it came to me, but it applies to other questions as well. So when we're looking at the annual costs or anything, do any of these have any flagged efficiencies? So if we're spending money in any of these, are there any efficiencies to be found where we could have some cost savings? Or is that, because I know we have an additional cost to operating in some of the lines, but do we have any description where it could save money?
Pass it on to Director of Corporate Services.
Yes, through the chair, our manager of IT is on the line. Perhaps he can answer that question.
Great.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
So in terms of efficiencies, there is no hard efficiencies for the unified communication. It is basically enhancing communication between city staff and making sure they have access to files and project management through something like Teams. But there is no hard efficiencies or cost savings.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that one? So we talked about project 3, project number 4, network enhancement. Then project number 5, the wireless enhancement. Project 6, earning management system. Project number 7 is the finance, payroll, and tax system enhancement. Number 8, website enhancement. Okay, I got Jody, then Counselor 7.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question about the website enhancements and maybe a little more information about what that entails. Is that the client or the customer interface, or is this just upgrades, security upgrades, or just curious about more detail?
Okay, I'll pass that to our IT.
Yes, so the website enhancements will entail the front face of the website, so changing and adding e-services to starting 2021. So we are looking at citizen portal enablement, and that integration will need to happen with the cities.
Cody, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Vasilakos asked this. I think I just want a little more clarification. So the when it says impact on budget going forward, the amounts there, are they included in the operating budget now, or are they included like they'll start next year's budget sort of thing, or like?
I'll pass it on, Director Corporate Service.
Yes, through the chair. Those items would be in the 2021 operating budget.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that again. Thank you.
Anything else for that one? Number 9 is records management systems. And number 10 is a scissor replacing existing lift. I think we talked about that. Is it a holdover from 2020? I thought it was.
Through the chair, yes. Most of my projects are holdovers from 2020.
Yeah, I thought so.
We put the brakes on.
Yeah. COVID breaks. Okay. Item number 11, the ice resurfacer. Kathy.
I was just going to say, I appreciate moving to the electric versions, especially around air quality in arenas and fuel costs as well, but also the health and safety part of it.
Thank you. Number 12 is almond cooling tower. I thought we had something on the cooling tower in 2020, but is that something else, David?
No, this is another holdover project. The cooling tower that we did replace was at the Rotary Complex. So
Oh, exactly. Okay. This is the almond. Okay, sorry. Councilor Gaffney, then Councilor Vasilakos.
To go back to project 10, what just for information, what's the cost difference between the conventional Zamboni and the electric one? Sir.
Project, yeah, go ahead.
I think you can get a regular size Zamboni these days for about $75,000. So you're looking at upwards of double.
Okay, thanks.
Kathy?
I had a question around some of these condensers where you say giving off heat. Is there an inexpensive way to do any heat recapture for use in the building anywhere with some of these units? I'm thinking more of energy efficiency, or is that cost prohibitive?
Through the chair, I'm not sure I can answer that question. I need an expert to tell me if we can recover from the energy that we give off of the towers. I can get back to you if I can.
I'd appreciate it. No hurry on it. I was just wondering if the technology exists.
Anything else on the tower? Project 13, almond plate and frame rebuilt. Project number 14, water fountains. So I was just going to ask, is it for bottles too, or is it only drinking water fountains, or is it a combination?
Yeah, through the chair, it's a combination.
Perfect. Item 15, the Rotary parking lot repairs. Jody.
Thank you. Yeah, just a reminder about the actual, like, I know that we're planning to upgrade the Rotary parking lot at some time in the near future. When is that planned for again?
It is kind of partnered with the redevelopment of the old part of the Rotary. So I'm not sure I can give you the date.
Okay, that's just it's in the next few years that we're thinking of that.
I would believe it would be in at least the next 5. What I'm talking about here is just general patchwork.
Right. Okay.
Councilor Ritzman.
Yeah, through you, the chair. David, are these premature, or is this kind of where we should be with regards to length of the life of that parking lot? It seems a little early, but maybe I'm wrong.
Good question. I'm not sure if it'd be premature. We're just getting a lot of frost heave and some cracks and some poor drainage around our main drains that need to be repaired.
Anything else on that? Bonnie.
What Jody had brought up was, I believe it's going to take 3 years, and I forget if it was $2 or $3 million, and doing each section of the parking lot. And I believe it was put into the capital budget over the next 10 years. But are you saying it probably won't even start for 5 years?
Now I'd have to check the capital plan to see, because I know we phased it in.
Okay.
So I'd have to look at the future capital plan on the repairs that we would make to the Rotary Complex parking to include some multi-use trails. There is also the idea that is attached to filling in the stormwater management pond as it is today and moving it, which would again do some parking lot repairs over by the Agriplex.
Okay.
Anything else on parking lot on page 19? So we're on page 20, project number 16, the backstop replacement at Packham. Number 17, Optimus Park playground equipment replacement. Kathy.
Sorry, Tom, I had a question of the item just before. I don't recall, had we talked at one point about setting up some kind of a sponsorship program to help support some of the replacement of equipment and stuff like that? I know it was some time ago, and I'm wondering whether we had actually gone any further on that, or I don't remember getting a report back on it.
We have talked about it, and from our feeling, it would take some outside resources, and it hasn't been included in the past budgets for this one.
Okay.
Anything else on that? Project number 17, the playground. Anything on that? 18, the cemetery road repair. 19 is a riding order with speed pickup replacement. 20 is the convention of purchase of 40-foot conventional bus purchase, item 20. Cody.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to comment as we did earlier, or that I commented earlier, that I would have preferred, for us to purchase buses that weren't sort of the conventional, but more of an electric ones. And I'm just hopeful that in the future we can move in that direction.
Yeah, I understand Ottawa is coming up with some grants, or they're already here. So I'd be interested to hear about that too. If these grants that Ottawa we're talking about, if it's going to help us in the near future.
So we do have included in, I believe it's the 23 budget, to look at electric busing. We are still part of the ISIP program, which has granted Stratford roughly $10 million, in which we need to provide 26% that we're funding out of the gas tax program. So we have put in our first intake, which was 3 years. So our second intake, which needs to be approved by the federal and provincial government, will include electric busing.
Okay. Any other questions on the bus? Not seeing any. We're going to 21, the parallel bus replacement. Page 26, project 22, bus shelters. Graham, if you can hear me.
I can, thanks, Tom. My fault. Bus shelters, how many bus shelters do we get for that amount of money?
Through the chair, it would really depend on the tender, but I could safely say 10. That will include a shelter that has solar lighting and a pad, an accessible pad.
Are these new shelters or replacement of ones that need to be replaced?
Through the chair, these will be new.
Thank you.
Anything else on the shelters? If not, we'll go to 23, sidewalk improvements. '24, accessibility improvements, sorry. '25, the bridge appraisals. 26, the bridge improvements. '27, the new sidewalk on collector or arterial roads. Project 28, the SMW facility clean out reserves. 29, pumping station upgrades. Item 30 is a residential service upgrades sewer subsidy program. Item 31 is the basement isolation. 32 is the water pollution control plant improvements. '33 is the sewer relining. 34 is a line 29 pumping station and fourth main. 35 is a renewable natural gas. 36 is miscellaneous auto repairs. 37 is mechanical upgrade to wells. 38, hydrants. 39, the Romeo Reservoir Work Phase 2. Item 40 is Erie Street Water Main Extension. Project 41 on page 45 is asphalt resurfacing. Kathy.
I noticed here that this is for like Romeo Street to be done from McCarthy to Arden Park. And so I recall that when we had our presentations last week, that there was a discussion around if there were to be some available funding to come up for bike and pedestrian or active transportation additional funds. And I know that a couple of years ago, Council had approved linking the McCarthy bike path across to Romeo Street as one of their we had approved it. It was recommended by Active Transportation Advisory Committee, and Council had approved it, but it was bumped by the pedestrian crossing issues we had on Huntington. And I was just going to flag that would be a really good project to piggyback onto this one, because then it would give us continuous bike facilities all the way along the length of McCarthy, and then linking up to Romeo Street and down. And that would be a nice continuous long stretch of active transportation. So although we don't have the money currently for that little piece of McCarthy, it maybe would be one to flag as a really good one if some federal money becomes available.
Ed, any opinion on that?
Yeah, through the chair, as I mentioned at the meeting on Friday, we did get some COVID relief funding. We're eligible for just over $354,000. Today, we just got the details on the application that we have to do. Depending on whether it's one or two projects, we have to have applications in by either December 21st or January 7th. So it's a very short timeline, but active transportation projects are included in it. So staff are in the process of reviewing, because there's a large number of projects that are eligible. So we'll be discussing it at a senior staff to see where best to use those funds. And as I said, active transportation is eligible for that funding.
Any other questions on that one? Item 42, like Fern Street Reconstruction Phase 1. Item 43 is a small one we have here. The Queen Street Storm Sewer Project 43. And I was going to ask them that even if it starts in October because of the festival, would the quote go out like in January or February? Like, I'm just concerned if we wait till, June or July, the construction companies will have so much, but it is specialized too, but is there a timeline when you would have this out to the contractors?
Through the chair, we've been talking about earlier in the year to go to contract.
It's fine.
Because of there are a limited number of contractors can bid on it. So if we get it out earlier, and then they know they have it, so they can bid on it, they have something to go to in the latter part of the year. So that was the talk. The latest, it would be like March or April that we would go to market to do the bid.
Any other questions on this project? Item 44, Argyle Street Reconstruction. Item 45 is the Mckenzie Street Reconstruction. Item 46 is the house service applications. Item 47 is street light improvements.
Tom,
Yes,
on 46,
yes.
do we use that every year?
I'll ask our director.
Through the chair, as you note, it's 100% funded by the homeowners, so it's all generated by their needs. So really, it's just staff time coordinating all that. There's no expenditure on our part. So again, it's driven by demand.
Any other questions on the house services? On the street light improvements, any question? Ed, I was going to ask, are there any improvements on the kind of either longevity or energy consumption on street lights? Anything happening that we should know about?
Through the chair, we did the Cobra head lighting several years ago, and we are achieving benefits from that. And I can talk about more on the operating side, but we've seen a reduction in electricity usage and in maintenance as well, because the LED lighting lasts a long time, so we're not having to go out and replace bulbs and such. So we've seen that reduction on the maintenance from Festival Hydro and what we're paying. So in a couple of years, we will have paid back the money that we borrowed. It was an internal financing because we borrowed over $1 million to do that, and we've been paying that money back. But in a couple of years, that will be paid back, and you'll see about $110,000 is what we're paying a year right now for that payback, and that'll disappear. Now, with respect to the decorative lighting, there's challenges there because of the cost of the decorative. There really isn't a payback. But what we're doing as the decorative reaches end of life, we are replacing. We've done some changes where we're replacing a number of them with LED lighting as that happens.
Great. Any other questions on the lighting? Councillor Burbach.
Yes, thank you. I'm just curious about how these would be flagged. I'm thinking about, I think we had a discussion maybe a year or two ago about lighting at intersections, especially to illuminate pedestrians, to make sure that vehicles can see pedestrians, especially as they're crossing. I was wondering if any of that type of lighting might be considered in something like this type of improvement.
Yes, it would be through the chair. Sorry, yes, it would be, along with any other concerns we have raised throughout the community when people in some of the areas as developments happen. We realized we need to increase the amount of the frequency of the lighting in certain areas, and it would come from a combination of. It would come from this fund here.
Okay, thanks. So if we had particular areas that we were concerned about, we would just send you a note about looking into those spots.
Through the chair, yes. I think we've done that in the past, where sometimes where we were able to attach additional lighting, say on existing traffic signal poles, to help with the illumination in those areas. I know we've had some issues at Erie Street where we had to do some additional work at Erie and Ontario. So we would look at that funding coming from this area.
Great, thank you.
Anything else on that one? Item 48, inspection upgrades for AODA at intersections. Item 49 on page 53 is pedestrian crossing improvements. Project number 50, the 2021 replacement equipment roll-off truck. Project 51, the 2021 replacement equipment of a shop hoist. '52, the 2021 replacement of a sidewalk tractor. 53, the replacement of another truck. And I was going to ask, the trucks we're buying now, are they lasting longer, or are they, what type of quality are we getting out of our buys this last while?
Yeah, through the chair, it's interesting you ask. I mean, we are getting extended life out of them. A lot of these vehicles, we get up to 10 years frontline equipment. We're doing oil spraying to reduce the rust. We're doing a lot of things to get up to 10 years out of these pieces of equipment. Sometimes you'll see some of us going even past that on some of the heavier equipment that we have.
Great. Project number 54 is pickup replacement 2021. Item 50, project 55 is the 2021 replacement equipment, a loader. 56 is the new landfills. Any question on the cell? Item 57 is the landfill puffer purchase. We talked about that the other day on Friday, actually. Project 58, 47 County Street repairs, masonry repairs. 59 is 82 Erie Street replacing 2 HVAC units. 60 is 82 Erie Street masonry repairs. Project 61, 270 Water Street window replacements. Martin.
Just want to go back to some of the brickwork. Do we have very many companies that are tendering it, or is it pretty much one or two in our area?
Through the chair, I can't recall how many we are. I know we do get out. We have some local companies that do bid on the work. You know, with our older buildings, they're always requiring some work. You know, it's every year certain areas need some, you know, repointing and things like that, and it's required to just maintain the facades and then prevent any leakage into the interior of the building. So, but we have had from local firms.
Yeah, just to that end, if it's ongoing work, if a company has done it in the past, it's kind of a continuation of what they've done, and they know the buildings quite well. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on the brick masonry? And the repair on 270 Water Street. Project 62 on Wellington Street, the front stairs and masonry repairs. So Ed, is it just kind of upkeep we're talking here? I know this has been, all the years I've been on council, it's been an item. So is it?
Yeah, through the chair, this is just maintenance. It appears that some of the grout we've been using lately is holding up a lot better than what we've done in the past. So again, this is just, as I said, it's spot repairs here and there that need to be done.
Ed, in the past, well, quite often in the past, if we had heat under there, would it help? Or is that something, I know we talked about it because it was a heated place at one time, I guess. And
yeah, through the chair, we'll look into it. But as I said, when I last looked, these last repairs that we did on the front stairs are holding up much better than ones we've done in the past, where we, you know, a year later, it didn't even look like we had done anything the year before. So.
Right. Anything else on any other questions of council on that one? Item 63, exterior painting, City Hall. Item 64 is 17 George Street, accessible access to police station. Item 65.
Tom.
Sorry, Bonnie, didn't see you there.
I just want to say I'm glad to see that this is finally starting to happen. Very important. People that have accessibility needs are able to get. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, that's the shower replacement.
No, but that's okay. It's the one before that, item 64. Yeah, that's fine, Bonnie.
Yes,
Good.
I'm glad to see that. It's very disheartening. I know that people can only get into the police station when the court's open, and even then when they get upstairs, apparently it's so tightly packed, it's very hard to move around. You know, you could have workers that work there that could be injured and need to be able to get into the building. So, and we all saw what happened when the elevator wasn't working. That was what, 6 long months, right? So, you know, we're just starting to look at it, but.
Anything else on that one? So on the shower replacement, item 6, project 65. Project number 66 is St. Andrews, 17 St. Andrews bench and an accessible ramp, which is like the council was talking about. Item 67 is
Excuse me.
sorry,
I'm just wondering, where is that?
17 St. Andrew Street. Oh, that's St. Andrew Street, St. Andrew.
Well, I know where it is, but we already have an accessible parking just as you come around the curve there, and a way to get up on the sidewalk. Is it down at the other end?
Through the chair, yeah, it's on the east side of the building. And so it'll allow people to use the book drop-off area to get to it.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Item 67, the Transportation Master Plan update.
Tom, I have a question for,
Yes,
for
please.
Ed. Ed, will we dovetail this in with the province on anything they're considering with regard to connecting links or Highway 7 truck bypass or anything like that, just so that we're sure what we're proposing will blend in with what they've got in mind?
Through the chair, we definitely would. So we would look at what the EA that's still ongoing for the Highway 7 work that the province is working on, but that would be part of this. And as I said before, our study's 10 years old. We would also tie in our existing bike and pedestrian master plan, tie that in with this, and any updates, and as well as look at Vision Zero as part of this transportation master plan update. So all of that would have to be taken into account, and as well as our downtown traffic study. There'll be a presentation on that in January, so that'll be more information that'll be used as part of this master plan update.
Thanks, Ed. Item number 68 is development charge study. Ed, I was going to ask, with that, it's going to start in the spring, and it's going to include the industrial, like the industrial development charges possibly also.
Through the chair, yes. Council has asked that we look at that, so that will definitely be part of this as we look at updating the development charges. There's also been some changes in legislation that will be included as part of this update, and that'll all be presented for Council's consideration. And so we want to start early in 2021, because I expect there'll be a lot of work that needs to be done and a lot of discussion with respect to the new legislation, as well as the potential for industrial development charges. So, hopefully we start in the spring, that there'll be presentations in the fall, and so that in early 2022, Council will be ready to approve a bylaw. So I want to give Council lots of time to consider any potential changes.
Thank you. Anything else on that one? Project number 69 is the driveway and parking lots. Project number 70 is connectivity and security systems. Number 71 is fire alarm systems replacement. Councilor Gaffney.
On item on item 70, $200,000 a year seems like an awful lot of money for the continuing, is that a licensing fee or something?
Yes, through the chairs, licensing and monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
So project number 71, the fire alarm systems. Project 72, kitchens and kitchen cabinets and whatnot. Item 73, my favorite subject, furnaces. I won't go on about it though. Project 74, Britannia Street, Phase 2. Item 75, the library collection. Project 76 on page 80, library computer system equipment. Item 77, the carpet replacement. Item 78, telephone system upgrade. That's at the police. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the phone system going to be the same or compatible as the rest of the city phone system, like at City Hall and stuff?
I'll ask the fire chief. Please. Sorry, police.
I can tell you from the police service board, the phone system is pulling into the radio system for the next generation 911, which allows for calling, call recording, call tracing. So it's different than what we'd have on a city hall phone system.
Okay, thank you.
And I was going to ask, is the fire and police have the exact same, or does the fire have its own, or is it somewhat?
The fire chief can speak to it, but I do know that he and the police chief have been talking about compatibility methods.
Okay.
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, we currently have the new phones that the rest of the corporation through the IT department put in. We still have some older phones still in place from our previous infrastructure while we're undergoing doing some collaboration with the police to try and make sure we all get on the same line.
Okay, thank you. And our last one is a radio system upgrade, and that's also at the police, which is it's quite an amount too. Any questions on that one? Martin?
Just an overall question, and I'm not sure whether it fits at this time, but through the director of, through you to the director of corporate services, I know some of the larger projects that are on the books here are recommending, well, will require some financing. So 2 questions. What are we looking at with regards to interest rate? And 2, is there any discussion about us ever considering utilizing some of the dollars that we have currently invested and using those dollars as opposed to financing?
Yeah, through the chair, we actually at the beginning of 2020, we did finance some of our long-term debt, almost $6 million, using our own reserve funds. So the city general fund pays the reserve fund that interest. So it's basically us paying ourselves.
Yeah.
The Infrastructure Ontario interest rates are quite good, about 1.5% to 2%, depending on what amortization term you have. And so once we had all of these unfinanced projects, we would then apply to Ontario Infrastructure for a debenture. And we also have the option to go to the bank. So we would take a look at their interest rates as well. But they won't give us interest rate predictions until such time as we go to them.
Any other questions on capital? If not, we have the amounts at the bottom there. We have what is long-term financing and what is coming out of reserves. If I could have a motion to accept what we've talked about in capital, I'd appreciate it. Moved by Councillor Gaffney, second by Councillor Vasilevsky. And you have a question, Councillor Gaffney?
Yes, I'd like to take item project 35 separately if we could.
Let me take a look at that. That's the renewable gas plant. Okay, if you want to take that off there for now, that's fine. I can take it off. So the motion on the floor is everything but item 35. Is that correct, Councillor Gaffney?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you made the motion and Kathy has seconded the motion. And Cody's going to speak to the motion.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering if when Councillor Ingram joins our meeting, will we be able to go back and discuss or make changes as if they're required?
Well, that's kind of hard, to be honest with you. I like if but on the other hand, if any counselor wants to bring something up in any of it, capital or operating, they can certainly put a motion on the floor. So I think if we could pass it now, otherwise would have to go through the whole thing again if she's not here. So it makes it difficult, but I understand your question, Councillor.
No, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Kathy.
I was just going to say that this is in committee anyway, so these actually will have to come back in council as well. So if there's anything, the vote still can change.
Correct. That's right. Councillor Henderson.
I was just gonna say, knowing Danielle, if she had any questions, she would have sent them in and asked. And got her answer. I see Hannah's answered some people's questions today. So.
Right. But it is a long process and there's going to be lots of opportunity. Kathy.
I was going to say, she may have had questions, but we do also have, if we're going to be doing recommendations on specific projects, she may have had input on or wanted to vote on.
Exactly. So we have a motion on the floor, all except item 35, the gas plant project. Any other questions or comments on the capital budget? Kathy.
I was just going to comment that I think it's a really good capital budget. I'm looking at some of the items that, you know, that have been a long time in coming for the public, and some really good, you know, issues around safety and traffic. Like I'm thinking Church Street, George Street, sidewalks on Mornington and around the hospital. So I'm really pleased with what I see in this capital budget in terms of both the things that the public don't see that we've had to do for a long time, but then also some pieces that we've had long-standing items, even like Romeo Street when I see that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion on the floor? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? I believe that's unanimous. If the mayor, yep, it's unanimous. Does someone want to go back to item 35? Councillor Petey, and seconded by Councillor Vassilasco. I was going to ask, is there any chance to have a report back on it, like an updated report, both on the possibility of selling the gas and the cost of the plant? Like I know we can keep it going, but it would really be great if we had, it's been 12, 15 months since we looked at it. I'd like enough, I wonder if we could. Ed?
Yeah. Through the chair, that was asked at the Friday meeting, past Friday, from council to look at for an update on costing. So I am working on a report. I'm hoping to either the 14th is my goal, but if not the 21st of December, to have a report to council to provide an update, and at the same time look for direction with respect to proceeding with the detailed design portion of the project. But I'll have more information on that for council's consideration.
Councillor Claffany and then Councillor Sedon, I believe.
Yes, that's basically what I was looking for, some sort of cost benefit moving forward. When you look at the price of natural gas now, is there a benefit to going ahead with this project? So thank you.
Cody.
Thank you. Just further to that, I'm just wondering if it makes sense to sort of vote on this item, or if we should defer it until after we have a report back, because things like the price of, you know, the feasibility of it, and you know, if we can't have an extension on the grant, for instance, then having this built by June of this year would obviously, I assume it would make the expenditure go up significantly to have it done so fast. There's just a lot of factors that we don't know the answers to, so I don't know if it would make sense to defer this item until after we have a report back, or what would make the most sense for that, because I'm just not sure.
Kathy, I believe you raised your hand up.
I mean, I'm still in favor of the project. I think it isn't the cost of natural gas, it's the carbon credits on renewable natural gas that we're talking about. So it really, they're not necessarily linked. I think, if anything, everything that I see both out of British Columbia and also from the federal government, and also the provincial government around landfill, this project still, in my mind, is quite feasible, but I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to wait until we get a report back, an update on the costing and the timelines, if that's what everyone else would like to do.
Cody?
Yes, thanks. Maybe for Ed, just a clarification on here, it says the end date is the end of 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So it
through
wouldn't
the-
need to be done by June.
Through the chair, there's no way it would be done by June, the construction. So that's being realistic, is by the end of 2022 for the construction. We are looking to have a meeting with OCE, who provided the grant. Preliminary discussions have indicated they do recognize that COVID has had an impact, but what they're looking for is some commitment from us proceeding forward. So with that report that I'll be bringing forward, I will be looking direction from council on proceeding at least with the detailed design, which is eligible for the grant, and that'll all be more fulsome in the report itself.
Great, thank you.
Kathy?
And I also had, there were some of the cost that was associated with it is cost for upgrading our digesters that would increase the lifespan of them. So I'm assuming within the report, we'll have a sense of how much of that cost we would be taking on, regardless of this project, or how it could increase the life of our digesters.
Through the chair, yes, I'll get that information. A lot of it has to do with valving and such that as part of this project that would end up being replaced to accommodate the RNG facility.
Councillor Shadman, go ahead. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, just to follow up, I was just pointing out that the deadline was, I believe it was June 2021 to be built, and that it'd be good to know if we'd be still eligible for that grant. And so just what Mr. Duluth was saying, that we would have more information when that report comes back to council.
Right.
So I would make a motion to defer this item until we have the report back from the director.
Well, I do have a motion on the floor. If it's withdrawn, I think Councillor Petey made the motion and Kathy seconded the motion. Would you withdraw it until the report comes, or what's your wish?
Sure.
Go ahead. How about Brad?
To the director, approximately what kind of timeline would we be looking at from your standpoint? A fair timeline?
The chair, timeline for the report, or?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, as I said, I'm looking at the December 14th or the 21st of this year to get the report to council.
Okay, if that's fair timeline for you, then that I'd be okay with that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Kathy?
And we're not finished budget until after that anyways, I'm assuming. So it's a committee decision. It can still come through on council budget, so we don't lose any time on
It
that.
doesn't have to be deferred because it's something we have to deal with. So it's the wish of council. If we don't do anything, we're fine too, because the report's coming back, if that's okay with everybody. Bonnie?
Ed, you mentioned that they just want to know that we're still interested in doing this project. Do you have a timeline that you have to let them know that?
Through the chair, that's what I'm going to find out from the meeting. I'll follow up to see. We're trying to get a date to meet with them, online meeting with them to discuss where we are with the project, just where council is at, and where we'll have some definitive answers as to yes, we're going ahead, or not, we're going ahead, or not going ahead. And I think one of the issues is proceeding with a detailed design that'll give some reassurance to them that there's that we are taking the next steps in proceeding with the project.
Okay, well, I believe we've got that dealt with, unless there's any other questions or comments on the capital. Okay, we can go to operating. Does anyone want a break for just a washroom break or anything? Is everyone okay? Fine. I believe we are going to have a break about 5:30 or so for maybe 15 minutes or so. So I don't know if you want to ask someone to have something prepared for you or turn the microwave on, Dave. I don't know what you want, but we will have a short break at 5:30. Okay, we will go to the operating budget, and I believe it would be helpful if whoever wants to go with, we can just start. Let me just change some papers around here. I've got a larger table now because of all this. I had a small table, but it didn't work for this. So we start with the pair of the council and the CAO. So if we can go, if we had to try to go through each one, I think that would be helpful in case there's any questions. So we can start with the mayor's office. Are you on, Joe? I can't hear you.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me?
I can now, thank you.
Yes, okay. So we are presenting the mayor's office budget. You have the details there, and I can respond to any questions that council may have.
Okay, any questions on the mayor's? That's fine. Let's go on to the next one in the council.
So we are presenting the 2021 city council budget. And again, any questions?
I was just going to ask, and I talked about this with our director. I believe like the conferences are still on here. I think anyways, yeah, the expenses. So, I mean, there is a chance if we don't go on conferences, we'll have some, and I think that goes for every department, quite frankly. Councillor, I think Cody, you had your hand up, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question about the memberships under city council. I just wasn't sure what that was referring to.
So for the memberships under the city council budget, those have to do with memberships for AMO, FCM, things like that. The city has a corporate-wide membership annual fee, and then that allows us to be part of that those associations, and it does not cover the actual conference fees and things like that, but that allows us to be part of the those memberships.
Thank you. And so does that amount is just for the council portion of it then, is that correct?
So those pay for the city's corporate membership in AMO as well as FCM. There are other memberships in different departments that are covered there, but that is strict. And there may be a couple of other memberships in there. Sorry, I don't have the details, but those are what I call the corporate-wide city ones, the larger ones.
Thank you.
Kathy.
I was just going to say the special events. I know it's set at 32,000, but given that probably 2021 is going to still be very much driven by COVID, and also the fact that we traditionally don't spend all of that budget, it isn't. I realize that dropping it to 22,000 or dropping 10,000 off it. I know it's just sort of a drop in the bucket, but I'm just wondering whether we could reduce that line item to 22,000. It would still put us well into where we were in 2019 and what we spent, but I think it's acknowledging that we're not likely to have a lot of special events in 2021.
Right. I'll ask our staff what they think of that, or ask Joan in particular, maybe.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So it is my understanding that special events account covers the events that are organized each year by the mayor's office, such as the Civic Night, the Stratford Day with the Blue Jays, Awards Night, Christmas events, and events held within the community. So certainly at this time, for some of those events to proceed may not be realistic at this time, but staff can take that back and just take a review of that and come back and I take the comment that you'd like to see that number closer to 22. I just would like to talk to staff about that just to make sure we're not losing any ability there for some other events.
Okay, Kathy, continue. Or was that it? Okay. Yeah. Anything else in that city council? I was just going to add, if you have a report on that, on the conferences, it would be helpful to have that too, because at least what I've heard, I don't think OSM is on, and I'm not sure if AMO is even going to be. FCM. I'm not sure about it. So I think we'll find out as the year goes on, but maybe in January.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair. So some of the conferences are continuing, but they are being held virtually. There are still registration fees associated with attending those conferences. Even if we're not attending in person, there is still registration fees for that. But I can bring back some more information on that as well.
Great. Anything else on council? Let's go to item 111, the CAO's office. Any highlights there, Joan, or anything that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so this is very much a status quo budget. We do have an increase in the benefits, including one additional retiree benefits that are included in the budget this year. There is money in there for consulting fees as well as special projects. We do draw on reserves for a lot of that. And then we have carried over a couple of projects that we were not able to do this year because of COVID. And that has to do with the wayfinding as well as the leadership development.
Any questions or comments on 111? Thanks, Joan.
Okay.
We'll go on to community services, and it starts with parks, recreation, cemetery, transit, and parallel transit. So anything in parks?
Through the chair, if I could highlight that we removed a significant amount of part-time salaries and reduced the purchase of bedding plants for 2021, knowing that, assuming that 2020 will be, or 2021 will be similar to 2020.
I was going to ask on the plants. I know we haven't had plants in Stratford, and I think we all agreed to that. But are there going to be plants like downtown? Like I was in Argyle and the lake and other places, and they don't have as many plants, but they do have plants in strategic places. Have we considered that, because we are having people come into our downtown? So I just wondered if are we having fewer plants or strategically plants in strategic places?
Yeah, you answered your own question. Thank you.
Oh, great. Rhetorical question. I love those.
Yeah, we're changing our focus from this year, and we will focus on downtown and Shakespearean Park.
Great. Anything else on that? Jody.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just curious, kind of halfway through the page, it says materials, and then under that it says plant materials. I'm just curious what the materials are, and it's a $100,000 line, but it doesn't look like we've spent even half of that for whatever that is. So I'm just curious as to what the rationale is with that one.
I'm not sure I can answer that question today. Can I get back to you?
Okay, that's fine. Any other questions? Cody.
Yeah, I just had a question about the line that's contractors. I was just wondering, is that the goose control?
40, yes. The $60,000 is goose control.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Bonnie.
When we're talking about the plants, and I heard you say we're going to concentrate more in downtown. Does that mean we're not doing the cemetery? Like last year we did what? Shakespeare Park, cemetery, and downtown in a couple spots, like by City Hall.
Through the chair, no, the cemetery will still be used. We'll still be planting the cemetery.
So just a bit more downtown than was last year.
We didn't put hanging baskets up this last summer, so this year we'll be putting hanging baskets and concentrating more on our downtown core.
Cody, do you have a hand up?
Sorry,
Bonnie. Go ahead.
I'm just curious. The baskets look lovely, But we did hear a lot of comments about the black netting on the flower beds. Although I'm guessing probably the flower beds would take a lot more work than watering baskets, right? Because you don't have to weed. I don't think you have to weed baskets. You just have to water them. I'm just wondering whether it's better to look at planting on the ground versus baskets, or what are your thoughts on that? Is it a time element? Because obviously garden would take more work, I would think.
I think the Parks Department feels that the hanging baskets and planters have a lot more effect to the downtown area than the beds. And I mean, the reason for the black matting over the beds is to control the weeds. I mean, if we didn't do that, those beds would be covered in most likely dandelions.
Okay, thank you. Cody, you're up next.
Thank you. I was going to wait, but I might as well just talk about, I just want to talk about the goose control. And I just wanted to go back to when Council initially adopted this in April of 2019, and there were a couple options presented. The one that was adopted by Council was the $32,000 option, which was to start in mid-June, and then I think until mid-November. And then last year for the budget for 2020, it was moved up to 48,000, and this year it's moved up to 60,000. So I just would like, I mean, it wouldn't be, I guess I don't know, it wouldn't be budget discussions, I suppose, if I didn't bring this up and I didn't voice my opposition to the program. To the program. I would entertain a motion to, I mean, this was one of the items listed as something that could be taken off the budget in an effort for cost savings. So I would entertain a motion to remove the goose control from the budget.
Okay, Council, if you want to put a motion on the floor is what I think you mean. And
Yes,
do we have a seconder for that motion that's on the floor? Do we have Councillor Gaffney, are you seconding the motion? Yes, okay. So we do have a motion on the floor and we're going to speak to the motion, and Councillor Henderson's going to start.
Cody, I can't find that line item. What number is it?
It's sorry, Bonnie, it's on page 9, fourth one from the bottom.
Page 9. The contractors, you mean?
Yeah.
I thought that, just a minute. Could I have Mr. St. Louis explain that? Is that just for swan? The swan, I mean the geese control?
Yeah, that line is specific to goose control.
And my understanding was the first year we only did sort of half an application. That's why it was only 32,000. And the next year we were doing 2 applications. And it was recommended at the time to do it on around 3 to 5 years to see the full effect. As some places take 3 years, some places take 5 years. And then after that, maybe we can look at reducing it or not needing it anymore. But to stop it partway through the program, to me, we just waste the money we've spent on it trying to get it under control, because my understanding is it's slowly working. Is that correct?
I think our Parks Department feels that it certainly has an effect on the goose control on the river and reducing the droppings on the sidewalk, yes.
I wouldn't be able to support removing this at this time. In another couple of years, when we get the report back from the Parks Board and how it's doing, or maybe even next year, I'm not sure, then I could look at it. But right now, to stop something in the middle of a program, it doesn't make sense to me. Sorry.
Ed, I was going to ask, if we didn't have this project, would you have an extra cost in cleaning the asphalt paths?
Through the chair, we would have a minor cost. It would be in materials or in equipment. We still have staff starting early in the morning, so it's not a savings, but there would be some savings in materials and equipment.
Okay, thank you. Cody?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment just again on when this was initially brought to council, the report, there were two options. One was the $32,000 for the partial year, and one was $54,000 for the entire year. And council decided on the partial one. And also, this has been presented sort of as something that they did say 3 to 5 years until sort of an effect was realized, but that this is more or less an indefinite program. So what the time we signed on, it's sort of something that's always been the implication that if we withdraw from the program, that the numbers will increase again. So I mean, I'm just not comfortable committing to you know, a $60,000 expense for this program, and you know, if this isn't, if the motion isn't successful to remove the program, I do believe we need to, at the very least, taper it back to the original intent of council, which would be somewhere about half the price.
Kathy and Brad.
So I was trying to think back. I don't have it in front of me, but I recall that it came to us sort of partially in the year. So we agreed to do a partial first year because we were starting late. And then it was that we would come back in the fall for the subsequent year to approve the longer or the full program, and that's what we did. So it was we approved the 30-some thousand with the understanding that we would then look at it again in the fall for the subsequent year. And that's where I think, am I correct? I thought that's how it had come to us.
So through the chair, yes, we were late starting in the first year. And so there was a lower cost. And, you know, in 2020, the budget was approved at 58,000. We moved it to 60 in 2021.
So just as a follow-up to that, did staff, I mean, I know it's difficult to say because it's sort of like multi-year program before, but did they feel that starting late made it hard? Like if we were to scale back more to the cost that was in that partial year, would we lose some of the effectiveness in the program, especially the idea of starting early before nesting occurs?
I think if we scaled back, it would be the amount of visits that our contractor would make. I think the length of time would remain the same, but the amount of visits would be less.
Thank you.
Brad?
Yes, and I will simply speak against the motion. As someone who enjoys walking around the river, there's something to be said about not having to do the dance of around the geese feces, and simply the fact of Lower Queens Park. You know, people who happen to be using or walking in Lower Queens Park, the fact that they don't have to play hide and seek around it as well. It's just simply the quality of enjoyment of our park system. And although it is a cost, it is, in my opinion, an expense to the benefit of our community. And truly, I understand that this is a work in progress, but I think we need to continue on with it for the full scale of this, to give an opportunity for us to seek the full scale of the opportunity.
We have motion on the floor to cut that, cut the item, the contractor, which is G711-7100-4050 contractors out of this budget. Any other questions, Councillor Seven?
Yeah, just to follow up to Councillor Vasilakos' point, this was approved on April 8th, and the services began actually the very next day, as far as I remember, when we approved this. And then just to Councillor Beatty's comments, you know, I don't think there's any one of us that doesn't you know, spend a significant amount of time by the river, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the wave of public response this summer and spring with people who are horrified at the practices of the goose management program. And you know, certainly I talked to many people that said they could no longer enjoy the river because of the harassment of the geese and the breaking of the eggs. And you know, I think you know, there's two sides to it, but certainly it's you know, the goose poo is a natural part of being by a body of water, the biggest one in the area where animals are, and you know, flashbangs and people harassing geese with drones, it's not. So that's just my comments on that.
Bonnie,
Unfortunately, some people misunderstood when they took eggs and broke them that were already oiled. So there was no live bird in it. That was my understanding, and the report came out from Quinn's department about that helps to be an effective part of convincing the geese that this is not a good place to be. They feel there's a predator there when they see broken eggs. And having said that again, those were oiled eggs. I heard from many people, and my understanding is the department also heard from many people about how nice it is to walk around the river without all the goose poop. And that's because we've lowered the population. Yes, goose poop is part of it. I think they each do 2 pounds a day. But if you have less, if you have 30 birds doing 2 pounds a day versus 200 birds doing 200 pounds a day, 2 pounds a day, there's a huge difference. So if we can lower the amount to have it what I believe staff said, manageable amount is what we're trying to attain here. And I also heard from people that mothers that push strollers, how there's no bird poop on the wheels, and from people that were stopping to wheel around the river in a wheelchair because when they get home, how do they get the poop off their wheels? So I think the pros outweigh the cons. Yes, there was people upset about what was happening, and I felt Mike Bites in the Parks Department tried to do a really good effort of educating the people. Having said that, there's always some people that are going to disagree with that, but I think the pros outweigh the cons on this. And at this point, trying to scare the birds off and encourage them to develop new habits, move out to the stormwater ponds or whatever, where they can go about their business all they want, is a real benefit to our city.
Kathy.
I just wanted to sort of a reminder that we keep talking about sort of the impacts on the humans, but there are impacts to, you know, the ecosystem within the park. We've created an artificial sort of ecosystem where the bird populations, we've had the question around the feeding of the wild waterfowl and how that's actually not good for them. And also overpopulation of waterfowl has impacts on the balance of an ecosystem, which granted is artificial because we've created it. But I think it is incumbent on us, if we're going to create a park system and we're going to create this artificial ecosystem, which we have, and it's also part of flood control. So we've created it for a reason. Then it's incumbent on us to actually do some good wildlife management so that we don't have some of the negative impacts. And negative impacts on the animals. It's not just the impacts that have on the enjoyment of our park system, but the negative impacts on the animals within that little ecosystem that we've created. And I think controlling what the wild waterfowl is one of those responsibilities that we have.
Thank you. Well, we've had a wholesome discussion on the geese. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed, if any? That's defeated. Councillor Seven.
Can I make a subsequent motion to reduce the program to the originally approved $32,000 or whatever the equivalent would be for the partial program?
Sure. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Do we have anyone that would like to second that motion? Sorry, we have no seconder. Cody.
Sorry, one last request. I don't know if this is a request or if I need a motion, but is it possible to have this item sort of labeled goose control, or in the future budgets, just something in a way that I just don't want to see this item sort of disappear into the budget and not, because as was sort of part of the discussion is that, I don't want to see this as an indefinite fixture in the budget, and I just want to make sure it doesn't get for future councils or for anything just sort of in the background. So I don't know if that's.
No, absolutely. I'll ask the director if he could clarify that with contractors, that it would tell exactly who the or what kind of contractor, if that's okay with the director. But I'll ask them right now if that could be changed.
Yeah, I believe we could list it as contractors.
As what?
Contractors / cruise control.
Oh, okay, thank you. You kind of cut out there, I'm sorry. Okay, anything else on the parks? Let's go on to 721, which is recreation. David?
Yeah, if you look through the chair, if you look through the recreation programs and the recreation facilities budget, you can see that we are revenue challenged. With COVID, we're not pulling in the same rent revenues. We're not getting room rentals. We would think that our pool revenue will be lower, summer camps will be lower, and certainly our ice rentals will be lower. Our expenses stay near the same, but our revenue is definitely lower.
Thank you. Any questions on recreation? Ed, David, I was going to ask on transit, is it trending up or is it trending down, like with the extra cases in Stratford? How's our transit from when we started to charge again to now? Is it trending up or down?
It's slowly moving up, but we're still not at 100% before COVID.
Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we operating 4 ice pads right now, and are they being used to their fullest, the fullest amount possible?
We are, through the chair, we are currently operating 4 ice pads, and we have enough ice for 4 ice pads, but are they at the fullest? We're not at 100% capacity. The leagues are still not playing games, which limits our rental ice.
Thank you.
Anything else on recreation? And go ahead.
If we head towards a red zone, David, are you prepared to close some facilities like arenas, or do the protocols allow, or does it change? What happens as we continue to go through these?
So through the chair, if we move into red, it drastically affects me. It will limit the amount of participants on the ice surface to 10. And I would, not speaking for them, but I would think that minor hockey and other groups may have an issue with only having 10 people on the ice and may not rent as much ice time. So we would be looking at closing 1 or 2 facilities. One of the biggest effects of, as you may know, would be Rotary hockey. And if they have done a great job in dividing their groups into cohorts of 50, but if it moves down to 10, they can't play a game, which most of their hockey is games. They would be in a struggling position.
Thanks. Anything else on recreation? Let's go on to 731, which is the cemetery.
Very similar to budget to 2020, we have increased our sales by $20,000. Actually, we've increased it slightly more than that. We have just put in a new columbarium that led this summer, and our sales are increasing.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on cemetery? Let's go on to transit 750. Cody.
Thank you. I just had a question at the very bottom of page 24, the snow removal. I was just wondering if that was something that we contract out, or if that's something that the city's snow removal takes care of, or how that works.
Through the chair, that is a contract that does the terminal and bus stations, bus stops.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure if you have the answer, but have we looked at including this as part of the city snow removal, or is it above and beyond what we have the resources for?
I think we briefly looked at it, and it appeared to be beyond what the city could do. So in our department, we certainly could not do it. We would need help from Public Works.
Thank you.
Any other questions on item 750 transit? Let's go to 751. Sorry. Did anyone have a question? No, I don't think so. 750, yeah, 751 parallel transit.
Again, the same story. Our revenues are predicted to be lower in this COVID situation. We see that we don't get enough, more rides booked is less. There's not as many places to go. There's not as many programs that are operating, so we are predicting a lower revenue.
Thank you. Any questions on that item? Councillor Burbach.
Thanks. It's not actually a question on parallel transit, but I see this is the last section for community services.
Yes.
So I just wanted to thank Dave that there's a section in here that shows the breakdown of the cost for each facility, which I think is quite helpful. It's under the section of supporting documents. And I think I asked for that last year, so I really appreciate seeing that in there. I was also kind of curious. I do know that Gallery Stratford, there's a cost to maintaining that facility as well. I'm curious because it's hard for me to figure out where exactly that comes in budget-wise. And because I do know that community services does fulfill like maintenance and snow plowing and those kind of things. So I'm wondering where do we see that on the budget?
You won't see it in there. It's so snow plowing is buried in the Parks Department. We do snow plowing for not only Gallery but other locations like the Rotary Complex. And facility maintenance is there's no scheduled maintenance other than HVAC or those type of systems, which we have a contract. Again, that would be buried in facility.
Right. So I'm just curious because it is one of our buildings. So I was wondering how much we invest in it every year to keep it open and operating and so on. So I guess that was part of I really like the facilities. Knowing what each one costs is really important, I think. And I would include the gallery in that just because it is one of our assets. And it'd be great to know how much is it really costing us to keep that open. And also what is Gallery Stratford contributing to that? Because I know they definitely do grants and get things for upgrades on like accessibility and those type of things. So they do invest in our asset as well, which is kind of a good thing. Maybe in asset management, this is where it'll come up. I'm not sure, but I'm just flagging that as information that I would be interested in seeing as a trustee of Gallery Stratford. So thank you.
Potentially we can pull that out for next year's budget and include the gallery as a separate.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else for community services before we go on to corporate services? Okay, let's go on to corporate services and we start with taxation.
Yes, so through the chair, before we get into the corporate services accounts, I touched last Friday on some of the things that are not included in the budget. Staff have gone through and reviewed these again, and we've come up with a list of things that are not included. We do have 2 requests already for 2021 rent reductions that will be coming to council. We are concerned about other refunds that are going to come through next year. We haven't budgeted for a shared climate change coordinator or a tourism strategy consultant. We haven't budgeted for the boardwalks and the alfresco projects, which may go forward next year. We also haven't budgeted for the lights on Stratford, extra hydro and snow clearing. And we haven't budgeted anything for PPE for staff related to the pandemic. So all of that being said, staff are recommending that council consider adding $150,000 to the budget to encompass all of these projects in one amount. And by adding $150,000 to the budget, that would take us to 2.5%, but then we would have some money to budgeted to go towards any of those requests or additional items we may want to pursue. Any requests would still come to council if people wanted fees waived or reductions in rents, etc. They would still come to council for approval, but at least we would have some money in the budget for those items.
Councillor Gaffney.
Well, one thing I would like to ask is if lights on Stratford and boardwalks and stuff, should they not be going through the grant process for that, or is this something different? And as far as PPEs goes, I think we should be adding whatever needs to be added to adequately protect our staff. But
I think the 150,000 is something we can put into that section of the budget where we can consider any further requests like the lights on Stratford or any further fee waivers or license waivers and refunds that may come to council.
I was going to add, if the pandemic goes on, I mean, the province and Ottawa have helped us in the past. Like, I cannot believe that there will not be some help again. So, I mean, we might have off like income we won't have, but hopefully the province, and I don't know if anyone's heard if there's any, I mean, I keep an eye on it, but obviously if this continues, every municipality is going to be in the same problem. So possibly we will have some more income. So I don't know how much we want to add on right now in case there is extra help, but that's just a thought. Kathy.
So I'm thinking back a couple years ago, there was a reserve that had money in it that was meant for something that was no longer needed. And it was the money where we got the, I think it was either the bathrooms at City Hall or the North Shore washroom. I forget which of the two it was. And we set aside what was remaining in that reserve fund for either special projects or things that came up or those kinds of things. And I'm wondering whether like it was sort of for council's future special projects. And I'm wondering whether like things like climate change or special projects for COVID would fall under that sort of umbrella of, you know, unforeseen or more like special project kind of thing.
So through the chair, yes, a couple of years ago, when we merged the reserve funds, there were quite a few odd reserve funds that were merged together. And that was merged into an account called Strategic Development, Community Development. And we did use $200,000 for the City Hall washroom downstairs. So I was just going to see if I could get a quick balance on that one.
Because I think both, and I'm not, that community development, certainly something for supporting the community through COVID, but then also addressing our climate change. I think those, in my mind, although again, it would have to, I would suggest that perhaps council look to that reserve if there were to be enough money to flag that 150 in there, if there were enough there.
Yeah, through the chair, the balance in that fund is approximately $259,000 right now.
Okay, that's good. Anything else before we get started on item 1? Councillor Bunting has a question.
Yes, I may have picked this wrong. Did the director mention something about the consultant and to be involved in that, or did I pick it up wrong?
Yeah, through the chair, we have a shared climate change consultant or coordinator that we've talked about but haven't budgeted for. And we also have talked about a tourism strategy consultant, which we haven't budgeted for as well.
Okay. Councillor Henderson, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I know we talked about this the other day. Can you send us an email, or is there enough time right now to actually say, I think climate change coordinator was $8,000, staff pandemic PPE is so many dollars. Do you have that breakdown that gets us to 150,000?
Yeah, we can provide some sort of breakdown. We actually started at 100 and we weren't sure that was enough, and we went up to 150. We still aren't sure that that is enough. It'll all depend on requests that may come in, but we can provide some kind of a breakdown.
Yeah, I think a breakdown would be helpful. Councillor Purback is next.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say how important I think the climate change coordinator will be, just because she's doing a lot of really good work right now. And this will allow a continuance of that work to provide us with a plan and then to help us to get started working on it. I think it's a really important thing not to sort of drop the ball on that one. And I would also encourage, if everyone, I don't know if everyone on council has seen her, the survey that she's created. It's really useful if you go through it. It's also very interesting and informative. So I would encourage all of us and all of the public to please look that up. You can find it. I think it's the Perth County social media definitely has links to that. And go and take a look at that, the survey, and fill it out, because the more information that she can get to bring back to create a plan, the better it will be.
Thank you. Anyone else that wants to go ahead?
So through the chair, if we decide to use that strategic development reserve fund to fund this item, it still should be included in the budget with then a transfer from the reserve to cover it.
Like, do you want to come back with a report on this before we do it, or are you happy, like, do you want it done right now?
I can come back with a breakdown for the December 9th budget meeting.
Wonderful.
But if we take it from the reserve fund, it will really have a zero effect on the budget.
Yeah, we understand. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, I think giving direction with that respect is, I think it's a good idea, because then I'm sorry, I forgot the tourism one. But again, I think even the tourism consultant, it's a one-off, or not one, but it's a single contained projects with a finite time span that I think really are appropriate to something like this reserve fund. And I don't know whether it's just that we all agree, or do you need a motion for that?
Well, if we have the report first, it might be helpful, Councillor, and that way we all know what we're looking at. If you're okay with that, it's only a few days, and it gives our staff a chance to kind of go over everything to make sure we haven't missed something. Okay, let's get going on the corporate services. We'll start with 100 taxation, and that's on page 31 of our report.
Yeah, so through the chair, this budget is basically status quo. Other than the dividends, we have only budgeted a half a year of dividends from Festival Hydro at this point.
I was going to ask on that, have we heard from Hydro at all? I believe they were going to have a meeting this last while, so I'm curious if we've heard anything from Hydro on the dividends.
Through the chair, I have not heard yet, but we'll follow up.
The direction from the board was to book a meeting with the CAO and the CFO with the two counterparts from Festival Hydro and discuss it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan. Anything else in tax in item 100? Okay, let's go on to general revenues, which is also general revenues is also 100. We talked about anything in there. So let's go to the city clerk.
So through the chair, the city clerk's budget is very much the same as 2020. There aren't a lot of increases in that budget.
Any questions? Let's go to item 131, the finance and treasurer.
So this department is increasing by about $48,000, but $41,000 of that is wages and benefits, mostly the benefits because of the 10% increase that we had. Other than that, we've made a few reductions to items and we don't have any large increases in this budget.
Any questions on that one? IT 134.
Yeah, again, IT is fairly static from 2020. Not a lot of change there, other than to wages and benefits again.
Any questions, comments? Next one is parking.
So the parking budget we have left to use $575,000 into the general city operations, same as 2020. If we don't have the parking revenues, we won't be able to do the transfers to the reserve funds. So we will have to keep a close eye on that in 2021, but we have budgeted to make those transfers and to have those revenues at this point.
I was going to ask on parking, how does like October, November compared with pre-COVID on parking? Or would you know that? If not, we can get back on that. But because it would be an indication of how we're going to do.
Yeah, I can just take a quick look. So we've had some fairly good parking revenue in November.
Good. Any other questions on parking?
About $55,000 in November, which is on par with quite a few of our months at this time of year.
Oh, that's good. I'm surprised. Councilor Bunting.
Now, would that be in fines and also at the meters, or would it be combined?
That is just the meters.
And do they have extra staff on at the moment? I seem to see them a lot more of late anyways.
We do have 4 parking bylaw people because they're also patrolling the outskirts out of the downtown into the neighborhoods as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions on parking? Let's go to crossing guards. I've had a question. I've had people ask me, we've got the lights up on Huron Street, but we still have 2 parking, or we still have 2 crossing guards. Can someone explain that, what's happening there with the lights and the crossing guards at the same time?
Through the chair, we do have the city clerk on the line, so perhaps she has some information on that intersection.
Wonderful, thank you.
Through the chair, the lights were installed in approximately September, and because it was going to be a new addition, we felt it was necessary to maintain the 2 crossing guards just while pedestrians and motorists became used to the intersection. Because it is not located in the original location, we have identified that the 2 guards are still required in order to direct the pedestrians across the intersection. We are going to be reviewing it for the next school year and are hopeful that we may be able to go back down to 1 crossing guard. But for now, we're keeping it as 2 just to ensure that everyone is safe at the intersection.
Councillor Burback.
Just further to that, I have gone through that intersection. My son goes to the orthodontist right there, and it's really necessary for one of the crossing guards to also control crossing the other way across Huntington. It's not just across Huron. There's a lot of traffic that comes through Huntington making turns and so on, and it's a little confusing the way the light is, whether those cars can proceed. So it really, I found that the crossing guard has been really important to make sure that the flow of traffic is correct and that the kids crossing are safe.
Bonnie.
Curious how that works. I understand when you're coming down here and you're heading west, obviously the light's red, you stop. But anybody that's on Huntington and they're coming south, can they just turn left still even though it's red? Or somebody coming from Huntington heading north, can they still just turn right when it's red? Because it's to the west side of them. I'm just curious how that actually works at that corner. Or is it just stop the ones on here and that are going east and west?
I will ask the clerk.
Through the chair, I actually will get back to this council. I believe there are some signs that are to be installed, and I also see our Director of Infrastructure and Development Services joining. He may have additional information.
Thanks.
Yeah, through the chair, if the intersection is clear of pedestrians, they can make the turn, but if there are pedestrians in the intersection, they're not supposed to make the turn. They have to wait until they have the all clear. And so you'll see in some communities, they'll have signage up that says, when there's pedestrians there, they have the right of way and you have to wait to get the all clear. So when you have a crossing guard there with the stop sign up, that's another indication, you can't make the turn until the crossing guard is out of the intersection.
Okay.
And have the crossing guards reported any incident? I know this year is a little bit unusual because of COVID, and it just started, I mean, I think it's great, but have the crossing guards sent in any issues about that?
Through the chair, yes, we have had some incidents reported by the crossing guards and the supervisor. We have requested Stratford Police Services attend and assist at the crossing location, and we are continuing to provide additional educational material to the public, and we're hopeful that as people become more familiar with it, that the issues will reduce.
Any other questions? Any other questions on the crossing guard? Item 139, general government.
So in this section of accounts is where we've utilized the tax stabilization reserve fund to try and bring the overall tax rate down to the 2.26. So we have added a transfer from that reserve of $500,000. That reserve currently has a balance of $1.7 million.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this item? If not, we'll go to 513 in industry land services.
Yes, so any of the land that is sold out in the right boulevard does get transferred directly to the reserve funds after legal expenses and those types of items. And so we haven't budgeted any land sales. We only have about $300,000 land left for resale in that area. And any land that gets sold will be transferred to the reserve fund. So if we sell any, it's a net zero effect on this budget.
Any questions, comments? If not, we'll go to 810. It's from others. We've got
I had a question, Tom.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just trying to see, how much is actually in that reserve right now?
That reserve has been used to do the crane development,
Right.
and it is actually, it could possibly be depleted. I just can take a quick look. Yes, it is in a negative right now, and as we sell more land, hopefully we can build that up. I believe we had a report from Seedco on that crane development land that when we sell it, we will get this reserve back into a positive balance.
What does it normally run around? How much is usually in there? I know that fluctuates depending if we're doing development and then we're waiting for the land to be sold, but is there an average over the years? How much is in there?
Not that I'm aware of. I can get that information if you want, if you want a 5-year average or a 10-year average.
I just wanted approximately, like, is it $1 million, 2 million, 5? You know, I can't remember how much the crane app cost us. No, I'm just kind of curious how much we usually have in there.
But it would
We
all
quite
depend
often
on sales too, so.
Yeah.
We use that land, that reserve fund when we developed the Wright Boulevard Industrial Park, and it was in the negative, and as we sold the land, it came back up. It's just the crane development now, we're paying for those costs out of this reserve, and as we sell those lands, that reserve will build back up again.
Do you have that handy there, how much that costs us to do the crane out? I know it was a report to council, I don't know if it's handy or not.
Well, if she hasn't, it could come back after counselor. I mean, if she hasn't got it, we can come back to it.
Yeah, I can find that out for
Thank
the
you.
December 9th meeting.
That's good.
Thanks.
810 requisition from others. Is there increase? Is there an increase in that one? I was going to ask the director. In 810, or is it changed any?
We did have some changes after our shared services meeting
Yes.
of November 19th. That was what brought us up from 2.2% to 2.26%. So we've had to increase the EMS, the Spruce Lodge. We had a bit of a reduction in the health unit because of the percentage cost sharing, but those new numbers will be reflected in that 2.26% increase.
Okay. Any other questions on 810? Bonnie?
Well, how's this gonna work? So we have the book and the PDF that was sent out. So there's changes in this budget. Are we gonna be sent pages with the changes, like emailed to us as things are changed? Like in the past, they used to give us the paper, but the PDF's fine. Or as we're going through, like you said, the health unit reduced, and like, do we go through and just mark our sheets up that we're having? How are we gonna handle this?
I believe it would be helpful if we had pages, but I'll ask our director.
I will check with the admin assistant of director of corporate service. We did discuss this. There was some concerns that the pages were confusing, but if council would like pages as we make changes, we can certainly accommodate that.
Well, it's up to staff if you want to discuss it. The only thing, if you have pages, you have it in it's in your book and everyone has the exact same thing. If some people put it in, some people don't, I think that's where you run into their problem at the end. We look at it and we don't have the same information. Bonnie?
I have an idea, is at the end when we're all done, like, I really liked how it got sent out this year in the PDF, you know, because I was just able to sit here and read through it all. Like, when you're going through your book, you have to turn it this way and that way and try to read it. You were just able to go right down and read it. When it's all done, maybe we could just have a final one PDF to us. I mean, that's just an idea. And anybody that wants to print those certain, well, I guess that wouldn't work out for printing them the pages, would it? I don't know. Just
We'll let staff discuss that and then we'll come back. Anything else on 810? 820 is committees of council.
So these are just the budgets that we receive from other committees. They're all listed there. There aren't a lot of changes. It's fairly stable from last year.
Any questions on those? I was going to ask on Stratford's of the world, we've obviously got a holdover on that, have we? Because I'm on that committee. I know that we asked and we did we hold over the dollars that we were going to spend in 2020, or do we have to start over again with that? And it may be in here that we have started over, but I'm curious about that.
Through the chair, we hold over all of the registrations that we've received. Those will be brought back into 2021. And then we let the committee budget for their event in 2021.
Okay, thanks. The last one in corporate services, community supports and grants.
So in this budget, we have reduced the grants by $100,000. If council wants to put those back in, it adds 0.16 to the budget to add in $100,000. We also took our 2-year remaining on the hospice donations of $250 a year, and we have divided that into 3 years. So we've reduced that donation to 175, 175, and 150 for the 3rd year.
I was going to ask on the grants for 2020, we gave grants out for specific projects. And I know I asked the corporate director about this, but I'd like an answer in public. Have we got any returns on grants that if they didn't have the projects?
Through the chair, we received, I believe, 2 where the events were not held and the money was returned. Other events that were not held, the groups managed to spend the money on items that they needed that still fulfilled their grant application.
Councilor Paslasco.
I believe the grant deadline has closed for applications. Do we know whether just roughly whether the requests are up significantly from the past or whether they might be down if some of the organizations are maybe pausing for 2021? I'm just curious as to how far off we're going to be from application to what we've approved.
Offhand, I don't know, but I can take a look at that before the December 9th meeting.
Right. So if we can hold off on the amount till we get that, because it is quite a significant drop, and you know, it's something we really have to discuss as a council before we make a final decision on this. And I don't know if you want to report back, Kathy.
I also had a question of maybe we could reach out because I know a lot of the organizations that apply for funds from us also apply from the Community Foundation, and also some of them apply also from the United Way. And I was just wondering if we could get some feedback from those organizations on where they are in terms of their ability to provide grants to not-for-profit organizations next year. Because I'd really hate to see an absolute squeeze on all of them and then start losing organizations that it'll just take a long time to ever recover them.
No, that's a good idea. And the other thing I was going to bring up, and we have done this last while. Once we approve the amount, Kathy, Graham, and Dave have been kind enough to go over all the grants, so we don't have to do it collectively. I believe we'll continue that if there is no objection on council, because that was extremely helpful. I thank the 3 of you for taking care of that. Anything else on community support and grants? And the report is coming back. I think it is 5:30 exactly, great timing. So I think we'll have a 15 to 20 minute break if that's okay with everyone. I know I need it.
Are we to stay live, Tom, or do we have to dial back in?
No, I think we can stay live as far as I know.
So are we back in 15 or in 20?
Well, I'll say 15.
Okay.
I hope we're back in 20.
Tom, could you just let me know what page we're on, please?
I will.
Page 68. We just were finishing up community sports and grants. We got through capital. And on capital, we referred number 35, the RNG project, until we get the report back from staff on the update.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah, we're complete. We completed capital, like Bonnie said, and we completed the mayor, council, CAO, community services, and corporate services, and we're just starting fire.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. We'll just hold off for a minute or so. We have a few counselors not back yet.
We're all there now. Oh, Tom, are you having some yummy soup?
We're supposed to see that, Bonnie. I did have soup.
Oh,
though.
I could almost taste that. I felt like tomato macaroni soup.
So we're all back, and we'll go on to fire item 211.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think I'm unmuted. Yep. Through the chair, you notice we have our normal annual increase in salary and benefits. We did have some modest increases on landlines and cell phones from the IT department. You'll notice some line items had some increases and some had some decreases. What we did is lines that we thought needed an increase, we did some cuts in other lines to boost those up where we thought it'd be more better operational without asking for any new money. So all of our reductions and increases on lines were all done internal with existing funds. What I will mention again is, like I did in the PowerPoint presentation, a couple of years or last year's budget, we did significant decreases in the capital reserve contributions, which was supposed to be temporary, but COVID-19 has put a big hit into that. And talking with the treasurer and the CAO, we didn't feel it would be prudent to be asking that 100,000 to go back on this year like was previously planned. So what I was asking is, if council finds the room that we could do 25,000 per year for 4 years. If we can't find the room to add 25,000 this year, then next year I'll bring forward as part of my presentation another amount to try and increase that up over a certain amount of years. Our entire capital plan for the next 15, 20, 25 years is built off the life cycle management of managing 200,000 per year in our capital reserves. So we just want to make sure we look after that equipment and infrastructure in the future. And take any questions?
Thanks, Chief. Open up for questions, comments on item 211 fire. Okay, you're off the hook there, so to speak. Let's go to Municipal Airport.
Okay, so very modest in the airport as well, but any increases or decreases on such a small budget can make a very big impact. What I will say is what was brought up by council last year for trying to increase or find increases in fees and user fees to offset, to try and make the airport neutral, revenue zero or revenue neutral, so to speak. We've tied that in with the service delivery review. I know I've said this before in our PowerPoint, but it's good to say again. We've tied that in, and we didn't account for it in our budget of what's going to come out of that service delivery review, because we didn't want to take the chance of inflating a budget and find out it doesn't hold water, and then we're actually in the hole at the end of the year. So when the service delivery review comes back and it's reviewed by staff and council, in the new year, then any increases will have to be deliberated at that time or for the 2022 budget. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks. I asked it last Friday, but I don't know if I got the answer I was looking for. With the airport, is industry and commerce, are they using the airport as much as they were in the past because of Zoom and different things, or is the airport becoming like a recreation facility? And I asked last time, but I didn't quite get the answer I was looking for.
Okay, so through the chair, it's not so much industry like it used to be. I mean, I was told when I first got here in 2015, there used to be I think the company or corporation was Fram. There used to be a hub out there, and that was a big boost back then. But since that hub isn't there any longer, or that's not being done, it's not so much industry as it is more hobby and commercial. So when we look at the Stratford Festival, that is a huge influx right there of a lot of people that fly in. And we do have a lot of businesses where at the corporate level, they'll have people fly in to conduct business and fly out when it's more convenient than driving from the Toronto airport. So industry-wise, not so heavy. Commercial and hobby, more so.
Great, thanks. Any other questions or comment on the Stratford Municipal Airport? Okay, thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate your time. You can go home now. Or you are home, I don't know. Anyways, let's go to HR.
Sorry, through the chair, that would be me.
Great.
Again, this is a small budget. The biggest driver in this one, again, is the benefits due to the 10% increase and also due to an addition of a retiree, which makes our benefit costs rise significantly. Otherwise, we tried to keep all of the other line items in line with 2021.
Thank you. Any questions for HR? If not, let's go to Ed. He looks like he's ready and waiting. So Ed, we'll go to Infrastructure Development Services and start with city buildings.
Yeah, through the chair, just to comment on what the big driver is here. As you'll notice, we're showing a decrease in this budget. We've cut back on a few expenses to help with the overall budget, and we're also seeing some revenue increases in this budget. One being with Invest Stratford coming over to 82 Erie, and also social services having a larger floor plate in 82 Erie, so that they're going to have to pay a little bit more for the floor space. So that's the significant items in this area for city buildings.
Thanks, Ed. Any questions or comments on this one? Looks like we're going on to 251, Developing Services.
Yeah, through the chair, its development services includes the building department and the planning department, along with bylaw enforcement. The big issue here is the loss in revenue. We no longer have the contribution from reserve. After this year, the building reserve will be depleted. We're not forecasting as high of revenue as we have in the past. We'll be lucky to see 50% on the building side. You can see that also on the planning side, a reduction in revenue. We're just not reaching those numbers, so we've made adjustments this year in that area. As noted, we did include our normal revenue from B&Bs for 2021. But as alluded to earlier, we're already getting some calls from some operators wanting to know if there'll be a reduction for 2021. As you know, they've heard that it'll be a shorter festival season, and so they're looking for some relief. And again, that'll be a decision of council, but that is $31,000 that we showing revenue there. So those are the main issues with respect to the development services budget.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on development services? Jody.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to ask about on page 85, we've got the full-time salaries and wages looking like it is almost doubling. So I'm just curious as to what that would be for. Just a clarification on that.
Yes, through the chair. And then if you look in some other areas, everything's been included in that one item for all of staff where it was divided up before. So that's the difference. There's no new staff that we're bringing on or anything like that. It's status quo.
Okay, and so we don't anticipate being able to bring any more staff on. For you were mentioning that we're going to be having to do some environmental inspection, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, through the chair, the linear ECA, that's more in engineering, and we didn't bring anything there. What we did do, and thanks for reminding me, we did eliminate 2 students in this budget as well.
Any other questions or comments on development services? Let's go to engineering 310.
It looks like a very large increase in engineering, but there's some changes in the revenue that we've done this year. In past years, we have a significant transfer from capital reserves to cover off staffing. What we've done this year is lowered that in engineering, that transfer in, and did a corresponding reduction on contribution to infrastructure, the same amount. That money was going over to engineering for staffing, so we've just eliminated that book entry. So we've reduced that here in engineering, and that's why you see that huge increase. But you'll also see when we talk a little bit later about storm, there's a decrease there to offset the increase that you're seeing here. Again, the staffing is all the same here, except for students. We've eliminated a number of student positions that we've hired in the past, so we've not we've eliminated that, and that's around $20,000 for in that area. Other than that, it's a status quo budget compared to this year from a staffing perspective.
And I think you brought up about Whiteman. Is there some income we're expecting because the project's went on a lot longer than we expected? Are we hoping to get something from Whiteman? I noticed it's not in here. But.
Yeah, through the chair. It's all factored in here under the contribution from reserves. When we had the Whiteman, when they originally came in to do their project, the new fiber, they were expecting to do it in 3 years. They committed to provide us $100,000 a year to cover off additional staffing resources that we would need in order to do the locates for them. They haven't achieved that. At the same time, in the 3 years, we've not spent the entire $300,000. So we have enough money left over to cover off costs in 2021 to continue on to provide them the level of service that they expect with respect to locates and approvals in order to do their project. We anticipate that it may go on 1 more year. By then, the funds that they provided to us will have run out, and we'll be talking to them with respect to the 2022 budget to see what additional works they still need to do, what resources we require in order to accommodate them for the locates that they will require in order to complete the project.
And I was going to ask, I was on a street the other day, I was on a street where they were installing. Has there been any sidewalk damage? They're doing a lot of digging, and has there been any extra cost for us for their installation? Because I couldn't believe what it looked like in the sidewalks and what not the sidewalks, but on lawns and stuff.
Through the chair, Whiteman is responsible for all of that cost, for restoration, for lawns, for restoration of sidewalks where they dug up, and so they've been coordinating that this year. Matter of fact, they've been using Nicholson, the contractor we used for many years, to do those replacements where they've cut into sidewalk panels and such. So they're coordinating all that, but that's all at their cost, not at our cost to do all that restoration.
And I was going to ask, have we had any complaints? Are people generally happy?
Through the chair, yes, we get the occasional concern from residents with respect to the restoration that's being done, or how quickly or how slowly it's being done. And then we also get a lot of concerns from residents who say, well, they're up on my property, not realizing that the actual road allowance, in some cases, especially some of the older neighborhoods, is almost at some people's front porches, and that's really the road allowance, and they have and they're allowed to be in that area. So we have fielded those type of questions as well.
Thank you. Councilor Gaffney.
Yes, I can give you a testimonial from my personal experience that when I ordered from Whitman, they had to take up a chunk of sidewalk in front of my house and dig a couple of holes in my front lawn, and I was more than happy with the restoration of the sidewalk and the landscaping they did to fix up my lawn. So
great.
There's one satisfied customer for you.
I'm glad to hear about happy constituent. That makes me feel good. Anything else on engineering? Let's go to Fleet 315.
Yes, through the chair. Basically, status quo budget. We're seeing some savings and less work that we saw last year. Actually, it's carrying forward with less work being done outside. We're using our mechanics to do a lot of the work where we used to go external to that. You'll notice a new line item for gain of disposal assets. We've been using GovDeals, a website for disposing of old assets, and we're seeing some better returns on that than what we would get in on trade-ins or trying to sell that on our own. So we're pleased with that. So we're continuing to sell used equipment there. And as I said, it's a status quo budget. No additional staffing that we're requiring in this area.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on fleet? Let's go to 320 roads.
Through the chair.
Councilor Henderson has a question. I'm sorry, I didn't see it down there. Councilor Henderson?
No, I'm good.
Oh, I thought you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
I was just scratching my ear.
Sorry, Ed, you got the floor.
Yeah, through the chair. So you'll notice a few things. Again, it's pretty well a status quo budget. Just a little bit of changes in numbers reflect actuals, like unrecoverables, just to reflect actuals. It's not the 21,000. And you'll see in road operations, the salaries and wages is higher. It's because everything's been grouped into that area. Something new that you'll see here from previous years, we've broken down a bit more to show traffic signs, line painting. Again, all the wages are sitting in the road operations, but you're seeing a bit more of a breakdown material. Just something from an accounting purpose that we wanted to see there. And then as I talk about street lights, we're seeing some good savings from the LED that was asked about before. If you look at electrical costs, hydro at one time, that was well over $300,000 for that line item. So you can see it's quite a bit lower. And this is going back several years now. So we've seen a huge savings there. Same thing on the service contracts. Used to be about $170. And then finally, the transfer to reserves, $110,000. I think after this year, we have about $245,000 left to pay back to the city for that work. So we'll see that line item disappear in a couple of years as an expenditure. But as I said, it's paying ourselves back for the money that we borrowed internally to do the LED conversion project.
Thanks a lot. Any questions or comments on roads? Kathy.
I just had a question. In addition to the hydro savings with the LED lights, do they have a lower life cycle? Like I know they cost more but do they last a lot longer than the last ones? Than I guess what would have been halogens?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah. High pressure sodium lights is what we had before. Typically you have to change out the bulbs every 5 years. There are other challenges with them. With the LED, they're talking 20-year life before you need to change them out. And so where the savings is both on the electricity usage and the maintenance required, because you're not going out every 5 years changing bulbs and things like that. So it's proved itself to be quite effective. And then we'll have to look again, not waiting till year 20, but somewhere around that time, looking at doing a program maybe 2 or 3 years to change out those to new LED. And of course, the technology will be that much better than it is when we put those LED in.
Councilor Henderson.
I can't seem to find it. Is this where I asked the question about repairing the roads? If the budget has increased much? I know we need to put more in.
Through the chair, this is again, it goes by history of our pothole patching that's in here, winter maintenance, all that is in here. So we feel that there's enough money to deal with that.
What number is that exactly? When I'm looking down this, is it under 3125?
Through the chair, it'd be under road operations,
right?
Sitting in there with staff, and then you will look at things like materials. Could be some contractors. It's different things that would fall under that.
Well, if I remember correctly, when I first got on council, I think it was around $500,000, and I think then it got up to around 800,000. And then I thought there was a report came back that just to maintain, we needed like, I want to say 1.2 million. And I just wonder how close we are that we're even having enough money in that budget to maintain our road. Or am I?
Yeah, I understand better now. So if you go to road admin, you'll see it's on page 97, second from the bottom. You'll see transfer to reserve funds, about 1,336,000 that we have for 2021 to go, and that goes towards our capital programming for paving and other road works that we do.
Oh, so that's good. It's come up quite a bit then.
Yeah.
You hear comments from people about all the potholes on the road, and I mean, I encourage people to call it in because I find they're really good. You call it in within 24 hours, usually that spot's fixed. That we need to keep increasing that so that we can get more roads done because that's just basically to repair the roads, right?
Through the chair for the pothole patching, yeah, that's a temporary fix. I mean, right. There are other patching methods, or really it's to reconstruct the road, or where we do asphalt milling. They call it shave and then pave. Those are the more long-term repairs that are done. I
know, I mean, I don't want us to go to a lot of work for this, but I think, like I know, what is there, 178 kilometers of roads or something, I forget. I remember one time they said you can go all the way from Stratford to Niagara Falls over to Fort Erie, and that's about the length of our roads that we have to take care of. In order to have, say, the road, well, we're following that road report, right, that we got in where it said what roads were fair, poor, good, and that doesn't affect that at all, right? That's just when we're doing construction on a road and upgrading. Is that right? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Through the chair, so yeah, to improve on the road network based on that report we did. So it'd be like a reconstruction. It's not the pothole patching that has any impact on the road. That's just to get you by until you can do the reconstruction or the repaving of the road. And then that'll take it, say, from a red to a green. And so we're using that report along with volumes of traffic that is on it to decide on which roads need to be done, and taking into account too the condition of underground infrastructure as well, if that is in need of replacement.
That was under capital projects, right? The ones that we're doing?
Yes.
Right. Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure I had it clear.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments on roads? Let's go on to 330 sanitary.
Yes, through the chair. So sanitary is a rate-based funding for this. It's all through the water and sewer bills that are sent out. So that's where the revenue comes for the work done here. You'll notice a new line item for revenue of about 90,000. We've been collecting that. We're now showing it. We're accepting some sewage to be treated at the plant that's being trucked in. And so we're achieving some revenues there. Our EC allows for that. And I'm not sure what the final number is, but I can say that our sanitary reserve will be in the positive. The Director of Corporate Services maybe can comment on that. I do know back in 2015, we're sitting at about in the negative about 4.2 million. We're almost there to being positive, and we look forward to in the future is getting that reserve account up into the positive so that we can deal with any issues that come up, emergency issues, that we have some money on hand. So that's those are the highlights of that budget on the sanitary.
Thanks. If there are no questions, we'll go on to storm. Oh, sorry. I see Councilor back.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a question about the sewage being trucked in. Curious that where's that coming from, and have we had any complaints from people who live near the water treatment plant that they might have noticed some more trucks coming?
Through the chair. Yeah, we did have a question by one person noticing the increased traffic. And a lot of that came up when the RNG project, when we were holding the public meetings. But since that time, haven't had concerns raised to me with respects to the trucks traffic coming in. It's coming in from a meat plant. They're on a septic system, so they're hauling in that sewage to be treated.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ed, just a question around that.
Sure.
It all meets, just for people that are watching, it all meets our certificate of approval, and our operator has deemed it to be tested before it comes to our facility?
Through the chair, yes. And yeah, I should have maybe when I said ECA, our environmental compliance approval does allow for it. Definitely has not had a detrimental impact on the operations at the plant. And you know, they've tested the product to make sure that we can treat it at the plant.
Okay. Bonnie.
Well, that type of thing that's coming in right now, when the RNG plant is up and running, will it go through that process, or will it continue to go through the process it is right now?
The chair, no, it'll not go through the RNG that process. It'll continue to do what it is doing now today.
Okay, let's go to storm.
Through the chair, storm is back on the tax base, and as you will notice here, the big issue is the reduction in transfer to reserve. When I talked about to offset the transfer into engineering, so you can see the reduction here, and we just moved around some numbers to, you know, for instance, you'll see contractors on their storm treatment's gone down significantly, but we've gone up also on contractors on storm collections. So just some rebalancing of numbers where we need those expenditures. One of the new things that we'll be doing here, we want to do in storm, is to do some more TV inspection. Storm tends to be the forgotten infrastructure, so we want to start TVing some of our storm sewers to see what condition they're in. Again, and that'll help us provide information for our asset management program.
Thank you. Any questions on storm? Let's go to water.
Yeah, through the chair, this again is rate-based for the revenues. It doesn't come from taxes. Again, we've kind of loaded up all the salaries and wages in the water administration portion of the budget. And the only other thing of note, we've reduced some of our contractor work just more based on actuals. And all that results in is that we end up with increased contributions to the reserves that are needed for our capital program.
And I was going to ask, is our consumption of water, is it going down yet? Like because of COVID and stuff, is it go up or down because of the pandemic?
Through the chair, our revenues actually have held pretty good through COVID. We thought that we would see a reduction because of reduction in industrial use there for a while, but I think there have been more people at home. So we anticipate that, I was monitoring it through the summer, that we will hit our numbers for revenues on the water and sewer side for this year.
The other question I've got on our water towers, are the tile, like I know we've had them painted in the past, is the upkeep, is there any expected big upkeep on any of our towers or infrastructure and water?
Through the chair, no, we're continuing to do regular maintenance on the wells. I mean, we did that major painting and on the towers, on the inside as well as the outside of the coatings and they're safe for water. There's a special coating that can be in contact with water. The towers, when we did those inspections, we're all in good shape. Very little corrosion going on, so we don't forecast in the foreseeable future any need to replace those water towers. They're in good shape.
Thank you. Any other questions on water? Let's go to waste.
Okay, through the chair now, waste used to be 100% through the rate, but now it's a combination of rate and property taxes as a result of introducing the green bin program, which is going well. The big issue here really is we're seeing a decline in revenues on the recyclable materials. There is going to be a change in 2023 with the producer responsibilities, where they're going to be in charge of pickup. We're still trying to go through what they will pick up, what they won't pick up. We will still have facilities at the landfill for materials to come in, we feel, because they won't be picking up everywhere. And so we're trying to still figure all that out. There'll have to be a report sometime in the new year explaining what's going to happen once this transition happens, where they're going to be due pickup. For instance, when you put in, say, recycling bins throughout the city, they won't necessarily pick them all up. They'll pick them up in say BIAs, but they may not pick them up, say, next to transit facilities. There's some issues about will they pick them up in parks. So these are all things that will have to be sorted out. So although we anticipate there'll be a relief to us in the costs with recycling, it appears that we'll still have to be responsible for some of the costs as this program rolls out. But there's still a lot of questions being asked and still a lot of answers to come on how this is going to work. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Henderson.
I was trying to remember, how much did you say each hazardous waste event cost us?
Through the chair, it could cost as high as $30,000.
30? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ed, I think we got to the end of your infrastructure. So thank you very much for your time.
Well,
let's go to social services. And that's starting with social service admin.
Okay, so the significance for this budget is basically the rental increase, but the increased rental costs will be directly offset by increased revenue to infrastructure and development services.
Any questions on admin and social service? Let's go to Ontario Works.
For the Ontario Works budget, as said in the budget presentation, where the allocation is frozen to 2018 allocations. So what we did to offset the cost is decrease the conference training mileage and meeting cost, as you'll see through the budget.
Any questions on Ontario Works or comments? Let's go to Anne Hathaway.
The only significant change in this budget is the introduction of the interfunctional transfer line, which we saw the increase to the daycare cleaning bill being brought in-house to, and it was offset by a decrease to the repairs and maintenance.
Thank you. Any questions? Let's go to housing.
So housing was a bit of a challenging budget to keep within, but we decreased the conference training and meeting costs as per the rest of the division. We saw an increase to the insurance rates, and our legal costs have increased basically because of the temporary moratorium of evictions. We foresee that we will see increased legal costs as we go towards the LTB.
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just again, for my, I guess, getting a better understanding of things, is that insurance the liability insurance, or is that? And I saw you nod your head. So, does that? Why is that insurance for Anne Hathaway not included underneath the umbrella of the city of Stratford? Or maybe it is, and we just extract the number to reflect the true user of that insurance, I guess.
So through you, Councillor Gaffney, this is for the housing units. Does that answer the question?
Okay. So it's independent. It's housing has its own insurance. Is that what we're?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's just what I was wondering. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, it's the Housing Services Corporation.
Any other question on housing? If not, we'll go to 616 Children's Services.
Okay, so the 616 is budget for Children's Service. The only significant change in this budget is the interfunctional transfer line, which we saw the increase of the rental charges again through 82 Erie Street renovations.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments? See none. Let's go to 617 Early Learning and Child Care.
Okay, so this again, we saw the increase as a result of rental, and we did see an increase as the cell phones needed to be provided to resource teachers as the result of the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Let's go to Britannia Street Apartment 618.
And the significant variances in this is repairs and maintenance. The cost for repairs and materials is expected to go up, as we all know, for 2021. And again, we saw an insurance increase from the Housing Service Corporation.
I was going to ask, is our income what we expected on Britannia on the apartments? Is it what we hoped, or is it just, it's in here somewhere, I'm sure, but is it meeting?
Yes.
Like our income, basically, is it what we expected?
Through the chair, relatively yes. I will say there are supports for those when we saw COVID, and we may saw a decrease in the rental income. However, we would use our staff to support that, to look at maybe the chippy to help with the arrears, if we were seeing arrears.
Right. Bonnie.
I'm just curious of all the repairs that have been done to Britannia, and was the new entrance into the storage area changed, the door entrance?
So, as we know, we're in the first year of Britannia, so we were looking at the different repairs that needed to be done. For the most part, they are done. To my knowledge, though, Councillor Henderson, the scooter room has not been done at this point.
When is it going to be scheduled to be done?
I can look into that for you and find a date.
Yeah, that's very inconvenient if you can't get around the corner and get into the storage unit and you have to leave your scooter out in the lobby there. That'd be great. Because I think we need to find out how much that's going to cost and get that done.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Kathy?
I just had a question about, I noticed that in 2020 year to date, there isn't a transfer to reserve yet. Is that just pending what happens by the end of the year? Because it does look like it's sitting at a surplus still at this point. And do you expect still a surplus for a transfer to reserve?
Through the chair, yes, we do expect a transfer to reserve at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think that's the end of social services. So we appreciate your input, and we'll go on to Stratford Public Library. Go ahead.
Through the chair, we had an email from Julia, and she had a previous commitment and had to jump off of this call. And I'm
Okay.
not sure that the police chief is on here, and those are the last two that we have to do.
Okay. So you're asking us to hold off on the library and the police, and is that correct?
I think we may have to carry on with those on December 9th.
Good. Okay. So that brings us to what we plan to do today. Is there anyone has anything they'd like to bring up? I have the clerk, Tatiana.
Through the chair, I did note that on the agenda, item 3.2 was the 2021 to 2030 capital forecast. Is it council's wish or committee's wish to review those items at this meeting or save it for the December 9th meeting?
I'd rather hold off on it because I personally haven't spent that much time on it because I didn't think that we would be. But it's up to the will of council if they want to continue. But I personally haven't spent the time I should have on that. Anything else for anyone? Well, in that case, I think we could have a motion to adjourn, if that's okay. Moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Purbach. All in favor. Thank you very much for your input. We really appreciate it.